Who knows what we would have done without them?
Said Frederick Law Olmsted, Secretary of the U.S. Sanitary Commission.
They have worked like heroes night and day.
The Civil War was harsh, brutal, devastating. There were at least 600 to 800,000 casualties. The North, referred to as a Union, and the South, referred to as a Confederacy, fought over slavery and religion. Thousands of men died for their cause. But what about women? What did women do to contribute to the war? At the time, women could not vote. They could not own property, and they could not serve jury. They could not be elected to a political office. But when war started, women found themselves taking on roles of men and responsibilities they never had had. Women first joined the cause of war because of slavery. They did not go out to fight or help. They used their words. They spoke out for what they believed. One of the women that spoke out was Harriet Beecher Stowe. In 1851, she started to write the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, about a slave and his cruel master. This story touched many Northerners and made them even more angry about slavery. These heartbreaking words influenced many, but as war moved on, people noticed words would not be enough. More action and help would be needed. Hundreds of women on both sides wanted to work as wartime nurses in hospitals, though they were soon turned down. In the 1800s, women were seen as too delicate to do hard work on the battlefields. People thought that it was improper for women to look at the bodies of unknown men. Nursing was a job for men. War was quickly getting ugly, and the need for women to take part came. In 1861, after a lot of persuasion, Dorothea Dix was given the job of hiring nurses for the Union Army. She had spent 20 years working in mental hospitals and prisons. She wanted female nurses to be taken more serious. She changed the way nurses dressed and hired plain-looking women. Many women had no training for the job, but they helped in numerous ways. One of these helping nurses was Louisa May Alcott, who helped at a Union hospital in Washington, D.C. Many African American women also served as wartime nurses. In 1862, Susie King Taylor started to work as a laundress and nurse in an African American regiment of the Union Army. She taught many soldiers to read and write. On the other hand, in the South, most hospitals did not allow women to care for wounded soldiers, though many women used their private homes to offer food, shelter, and help sick soldiers. Kate Cummings from Alabama helped nurse Confederate soldiers in Mississippi. In her diary, she wrote about how wounded soldiers were laying.
So close together that it was almost impossible to walk without stepping on them. I sat up all night, bathing the men's wounds and giving them water.
Women like Kate never gave up, even if the work was difficult. At least 400 women disguised themselves as men and fought in the Civil War. Some women joined because they wanted to be with their husbands, and many wanted to serve their country. Other just for adventure. Who would have guessed you were a woman if your hair was short, you drank, chewed tobacco, you wore the same uniform as every other soldier, and your name was Frances Clayton? Frances joined the Union Army to be with her husband. She kept fighting till he was shot right in front of her. Many women refused to be treated if they were wounded. They didn't want to have their clothes taken off because people would find their identity. In 1863, a cavalryman wrote,
"We discovered last week a soldier who turned out to be a girl. She already had been in service for 21 months and was wounded twice. Maybe she would have remained undiscovered for a long time if she hadn't fainted. She was given a warm bath which secretly gave her away."
Harriet Tubman, like other ex-slaves, helped spy for the Union Army. Harriet was one of the first women to lead an armed expedition in war. Being African American, it was less likely she could be suspected. During her life, she led about 300 slaves to freedom. Tubman created a network known as the Underground Railroad to travel from the South to Philadelphia. She has been forever praised for her work in the Civil War and slavery. Rose O'Neal Greenhow gathered information about the Union and passed it to the Confederacy. She was not scared of being sent to prison and kept working with her spy work. She was later put in prison by Allan Pinkerton. She is an example of strong women that spied during the Civil War and were not afraid of the consequences. Many Northern and Southern women took on responsibilities during the Civil War. At home, women kept farms and factories working. They ran offices, taught school, and kept government records. Women were wartime nurses, surgeons, spies, and many disguised themselves as men to serve as Union or Confederate soldiers. Their traditional roles for women dramatically changed. Women showed that they were willing to help even if it was difficult. These helpful gifts to our nation during war began to give women ideas about what is their proper place in society.